Hey girl, my name is Anel. Welcome to the Brave and Her podcast, where we inspire, empower, and motivate by sharing our stories of bravery. I strongly believe that by sharing our stories, we open ourselves to healing, but also serve to give hope and inspiration to those who are dealing with a tough situation. We will talk about all topics under the sun. Now let's hear your stories of bravery. Hey girl, thank you for being here in today's episode. We have my friend Irma Miramontes. This is her second time being here, and I'm so excited because she's going to share a beautiful poem that she recently wrote and shared at a conference. And it's just beautiful. When I first read it, I was crying, to be honestly, but anyway, so I'll have Irma introduce herself, and then we'll get right into why she wrote the poem. Hi Irma, how are you?
Hola.
Hola. ¿Sí te puedes presentar?
Hola, yo soy Irma Miramontes, soy pocha, vengo de padres mexicanos y nací yo aquí en Estados Unidos. I think in English, and so pero me comunico también en español, both. We just had the women's event this weekend, and it was really, really powerful. And now maybe you could share how that poem impacted you. It impacted me so powerfully. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am a mother of 3 children. I'm married. My husband and I run 2 businesses. I'm a leader at the church, and he is also leading with me with coordination of events and so forth. I also speak for women's events at our church. I have a blog that I have not updated, but they're filled with poems. It's called rediscoverme.net. But it has been a few years that I haven't updated it. My journey is shifting and changing, and right now, as I write poems, it's not so much for myself as it used to be. Right now, as it is requested of me, I write them, but God works in me in that process for sure. And this particular poem, I was given the title Libre, free. That was the title of our conference, and I had to search with God what that meant for me, what that meant in terms of me sharing writing and sharing this poem. And so I'm gonna go ahead and read it, and maybe we can reflect on it afterwards.
Okay. Yeah. And then you can tell us, what was your inspiration behind writing this poem and the powerful words that you wrote in it?
I have been on a journey of rediscovering myself for lots of years, but I feel like this past year or so, I have been so invested in it. So I feel like, I don't know if it's our culture but in my family, in our Latino culture, I feel like we're not taught to take care of ourselves. We're not taught we're taught to take care of everybody else and everything, right? And in addition, like, in the modern world, we also work and bring in, money, but we also do all the things we used to do in the non-modern world, right? Mm-hmm. And that's so much. It's exhausting. It's a lot of things. And I mean, I know that the old-fashioned way of parenting, se desquita uno con gritarle a los niños and get the chancla and, whatever the case is. And as we evolve and we learn more, we learn that that's not what we want to do, right? That's not the legacy we want to bring forward for our kids. And so when we discipline, hopefully we're disciplining out of correcting our children, not out of releasing our anger or our frustration, right? So what I noticed in myself, and not to mention, I did this crazy thing before the pandemic, and I homeschooled my kids for like 7 years, all 3 of them. So in addition to everything else, I was doing this great thing. And this is what we do as we serve in our church sometimes. Like, we're doing these great things for other people, okay? But we're doing them and we're frustrated and we're upset and we expect others to pitch in with us and they're not always following through. All these things that I feel that God looks at us and says, who told you to do that? It's too much. It's too much. Like, serve with your full heart, serve with a grateful heart, a giving heart. But if it's too much for you, what are you giving them?
Yeah.
Right? You're giving them that frustration. You're putting the burden on them. Like, you're making them feel shame or hurt that you're doing all this for them and they can't meet your standards in return for, agradecimiento or affirmations, whatever the case may be. And so I saw myself, I had this like so beautiful moment. It's almost like, I'm going to tell you a little story. When I had my third child, and well, before I had two children before that, I was trying to be brave, not to take the epidural, the whole healthy route. And then toward the end, I was like, nope, I need that epidural. I did it both times. And on the third time, I said, I'm not going to try to be brave. I'm going to do the epidural from the moment I arrived. So I arrived a little too late for the epidural. I had suffered the pain at my home. And when I was at the hospital, I was ready to deliver. So they said, it's too late. You're too far along, etc. And so no epidural. I had the baby within 1 hour of arriving. But I felt the excruciating torture of every little bit, like all of it. And I saw myself, like I had an out of body experience where like I was seeing myself from above, like being tortured, right? I felt that. And coming back to fast forward all these years later, I have this moment where I'm feeling so anxious, down, depressed, like overwhelmed, just all kinds of things, right? My mental health wasn't at a strong place. My physical health wasn't at a strong place. I was going through something really tough in my family, and I was doing all the things and more. And so I was carrying my family along, and it was just draining me. And I laid in my bed and I saw myself, like that day when I was giving birth, I saw myself from the outside in, and I saw myself and I wondered, if I wasn't myself, how would I be taking care of this woman? How would I think about her? What would I say about her? What would I recommend to her? What advice? How would I, pray over her? All these things, because we naturally are wanting to be caretakers. And I have a daughter, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if she was feeling these things, how would I be there for her, right? How can I be there for me? What can I do for me? And I started this journey of self-care. And when I say self-care, I know that there was this like me time kind of movement a few years ago, and that's fantastic. I mean, go get your nails done, go get your hair done, a massage, all of it, you deserve it. But to me, this was at another level. How do you take care of yourself every single day? How do you protect yourself from people saying things and you not being able to speak up to defend yourself, or because you don't have the skill, or because you're doubtful of yourself, or because you don't want to cause problems, you're not confrontational, etc., etc., or this person is draining you and you don't know how to stop it because you have to be nice, you have to be amable. And so I went on this journey, and for me it looks like setting boundaries. For me it looks like owning what I say, and also realizing that I'm going to say the wrong things at the wrong times, and addressing that, being sorry about it, being vocal about it, and not like, torturing myself in my mind about it. And also like, what does my body need? How do I feed it a healthy amount of food? And also like, how do I balance, también las busqueras, whatever I want to eat. And what does my mind, what does my soul, what does my spirit need? All of it, all of it. And how does that look like in a busy lifestyle? And it looks like I'm gonna have less outbursts. It looks like I'm gonna have less time that I can't figure things out. You know, it looks like if I put in the work every single day, I don't have these like time frames where I can't function as much.
Yeah. And you
That makes
avoid like the burnout, right? Because
sense.
you just keep going and you hit a wall. And so
Yeah.
if you take care of yourself every day, and I'm not gonna say that there isn't gonna be a day where you're gonna be like, okay, I can't do this anymore, I need to take a break. No, but at least it's not gonna be as bad, I feel, because you've already taken care of yourself all along.
It's kind of like a lot of times we have trouble seeing mental health um, as important as physical health.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not tangible. You know, you can see a broken arm, you can't see a broken heart. You don't know what's going on inside of someone. And then we tend to put this facade also for different reasons. I'm not knocking that. I'm very private in my journey sometimes. For different reasons. Sometimes I struggle with trusting people, or I struggle with like going in. Yeah, I'm not going to tell everyone what I'm going through, right? If I don't have to, I go to certain people that I'm really connected with and I trust.
Well, it's going back to what you were saying about setting boundaries. Sometimes you do have to protect your mental health by setting boundaries and being okay with not telling everybody.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
you have to choose or figure it out who your inner circle is and
Yeah.
not be open with everybody, setting that boundary.
But also on the other side of it, because I tend to get closed up, share with someone.
Right.
Don't just keep it to yourself. Like when I'm going through these hard things, I tend to not be able to have like small talk, for example. I'm more like, oh, that's so meaningless in those moments. It's like I have this heavy thing that I'm going through. I can't do that. It feels almost like I have to pretend. That's just me. Some people maybe like my husband, he will thrive in that because it releases him. It's like I don't have to think about that hard thing. I can move on. So it's knowing who you are, because as we change every single day, I feel like as we go through new experiences, we change a little bit.
Right.
So to know why I'm responding the way I am, to know where does this come from and why, all that seems like a little bit of healing and understanding. And can I make that adjustment? How can I regulate this trigger? Because
Mhm.
if I recognize that it's a trigger, then it's like an aha moment, other than just moving through and just like, feeling that ugly feeling inside and then being resentful and all these things. I learned that I took a lot of things personally, and a lot of times people are just responding out of their own experience, not
Right.
necessarily to attack me. They might not even know that it would hurt me, right? And here I am holding this thing and realizing that or thinking that they're attacking me and so forth. That's not the case.
Right. And
That's not.
sometimes people respond not because, like you said, not based on, their feelings towards you, but their own feelings towards themselves. It's
Yeah,
a reflection of their frustrations or their anger or, whatever their, I guess, whatever demons that they're fighting, right?
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, because it changes our perspective. It changes a lot of things, and what we've been through gives us like sort of our opinion or where we stand on things and our background, all of it, right? And
Right.
so what could be awful to you, it might not be to me.
Right.
So I'm not here to like say, well, how dare you do this thing, right? Like if we even, I mean, I don't want to go into details, but like even like the, in growing up in the religion, still Christianity, but like this strictness, this like you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't,
Yeah.
wear pants. can't put makeup on. And so when you come to a place that you realize that that's not a sin for me. If that's a sin for you because of whatever past and you've dealt with that with God, that's your, that's your prerogative, but don't put it on me.
Right.
Because it's not. I am looking for my alignment with God every single day. Like, I want to follow your will, and I'm hoping that, yeah, that I walk in it, and that those things that he moves my heart to change, that I'm working on that. But when someone else tries to put their perspective on me, I mean, I could take it as advice, I could take it as different things, but I need to not take it as an attack, because it's not for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes people just, like you said, say things without knowing that they're hurting you.
Yeah. I've done that to people myself. And it sucks. And then we can't take those words back, right? But we can at least do our part in trying to, apologize and make that change.
Right.
Yeah.
And so before we started chatting, you were gonna share your poem, because I feel like your poem a little bit touches on those things, and where, like what you said, finding those triggers, right?
Yeah.
And so knowing those triggers kind of like will prevent you from recognizing them when they happen, and making that decision of how you're going to react, right? Because so today what I learned is that today I went to church and I learned that your responsibility is not other people's reaction to whatever, like let's say you're offering something, and because sometimes we doubt, like, oh, I don't want to offer this because this person might get offended, or you don't know how that person will react. Well, that's not your responsibility. That's their responsibility how they're going to react. Your responsibility is just following what God's calling you to do. So in terms of like triggers, they can be there and they're going to be there always. It's just recognizing those triggers and taking that responsibility of how we're going to react.
That's true.
And
yeah.
It could be triggers from childhood, or it could be new triggers that you don't even remember. You don't know that those are triggers, but something that happened to you in your childhood, or something that happened to you while you were a teenager that might not come up right away. It might come up 10, 20 years later and becomes a trigger later, and just recognizing.
Yeah. Absolutely. I even in speaking of the poem, I'm going to share that our women's event was super. God gave all those words a lot of power, and the Holy Spirit moved in beautiful ways. To what you're saying, as I came down the stage and I spoke with some women, I was being told that, like, that those words stirred up something inside of them that, like, nobody could have brought up, like, and I'm not going to take credit for that. That's the move of the Holy Spirit. But what I'm saying, to what you're agreeing with what you're saying, is that sometimes we have things really deep down, and sometimes we've learned how to move on with life and sort of create this new identity where, okay, that's in the past, I don't have to deal with it anymore. But we have to realize if we truly have overcome it, or if we have learned how to really push it all the way down. And I know that even I believe that our bodies are not meant to carry all that weight, and so it comes out, and not in the actual form that it went in as. It comes out in other forms, such as anxiety, such as fears, such as depression. It can do that. And so
too. Sorry, and physical too. Like,
absolutely.
Sometimes you can't explain, like, why are you feeling sick? Why are you feeling tired? Why these things are happening, there's no
Explanation.
yeah, there's no explanation. There's sometimes like no explanation. You just, feel these things, but it's because maybe it's things that like you said, we push down a lot, like
Yeah,
deep, 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 deep inside.
I think so too. And so what a couple of these ladies were telling me is that these words and the power behind them with the Holy Spirit, like it stirred up these things from their past that they hadn't fully dealt with.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty impactful to hear and know that. And even like when you're saying with the physical, I feel like sometimes even like doctors can't find out why we're feeling what we're feeling. And I'm not saying it's necessarily always the case, but there could be reasons that are psychological that are creating these things in our body that nobody can resolve.
Right. And
So
so with that, do you want to share your poem?
okay. Es en español mi poema. Dice, acuérdate de la niña tierna que eras y de los momentos tan duros que viviste. Ten compasión y amor por esa niña. Dile que no va a cargar con ese dolor toda su vida. Acuérdate de la adolescente insegura que eras. Siente amor por ella y dale gracia. Dile que todo lo que guardó en secreto todo este tiempo sale hoy. Entrégaselo todo a Dios. Reconoce tu valor y la gran mujer que eres. Has tenido trauma y la estás superando. Las heridas han sido profundas, pero estás sanando. Te dijeron que no llegarías a nada, pero están equivocados. Las trabas han sido muy duras, pero estás triunfando. Eres fuerte y valiente, eres bella e inteligente, eres luchista y creativa, eres hogareña y trabajadora. Cada vez que te encuentras en la oscuridad, buscas la luz y sales brillando más. Reconoce tu valor y no permitas que nadie te devalúe. Le pides a Dios que haga milagros y tal vez Él te está esperando para que tú tomes el primer paso. Deja que Él sea tu guía. Has tenido muchísimas prioridades, pero hoy tú eres la prioridad. Tú eres importante. Eres hija del Rey de Reyes y Creador del universo. El Todopoderoso Dios es tu Padre y tú eres la niña de sus ojos, su precioso tesoro. Tienes muchísimo valor. Cuídate como cuidas a los demás. Perdónate por tus fracasos, no te definen. Perdona a los que te han hecho daño y sé libre. Sé libre de las cargas pesadas, déjalas aquí. Libre de las cadenas que te atan, rómpelas hoy. Libre de todo lo que te detiene, suéltalo en este momento. Sé libre, libre para seguir tu llamado, libre para soñar en grande y alcanzar esos sueños, libre para vivir en tu verdad. No dejes que nada ni nadie te detenga. Si es la voluntad de Dios, lo vas a lograr. El camino ha sido duro y muy largo, pero has llegado. Sé orgullosa por todo lo que has superado y por todas las veces que te has levantado. Sé orgullosa por todo lo que has aprendido y logrado, pero te has puesto a un lado por demasiado tiempo. Los sacrificios han tenido un alto precio. A veces no te conoces, tal vez te perdiste, pero ten fe. Hoy comienza una nueva temporada. Mírate con amor y respeto. Alimenta tu cuerpo, tu mente, tu alma y espíritu. Camina en la naturaleza y habla con Dios. Calla los ruidos para escuchar a tu Creador. Acéptate como tú eres y sé la mejor versión de ti misma. No escondas lo que sientes, es válido. No dudes de lo que puedes ofrecer, tendrás un impacto. Alza tu voz, tienes algo muy importante que decir. Conócete de nuevo y busca de Dios. Corre a sus brazos, te está esperando. Te ama muchísimo más de lo que te puedas imaginar y te acepta como tú eres. Nunca más te conformes con migajas. Él te ofrece todo el banquete. Sé muy buena contigo misma y haz que tu futuro ser se enorgullezca de ti.
Beautiful. Hay muchas partes que me gustan, pero like la primera parte, like the first, like what sentence or two, I think that's what captured me the most. Acuérdate de la niña tierna que eras y de los momentos tan duros que viviste. Ten compasión y amor por esa niña. Dile que no va a cargar con ese dolor toda su vida. I guess for me, because I went through a lot cuando era niña because of my health issues, but yeah, that's what got me. But the entire poem, like when I was reading it, like I was just like amazed, like this was like meant for me, like word for word. But anyway, like why, like how did you get inspired to write such a beautiful poem?
And
what were you thinking about?
Well, you know how I said, look at yourself from the outside in. I mean, we've gone through so many things. Everyone has their own story, right? And so to acknowledge that life has been rough, to acknowledge that little girl who should have felt protected, who should have felt loved, or should have felt what she didn't feel, like to acknowledge that was you is pretty powerful. To offer like that love, to love yourself.
Yeah.
To deeply love yourself, because why do we give everyone else that love? We deserve it too. And like we can't expect, I mean, yes, certain expectations are there for our loved ones, but like sometimes they don't have the capacity. They have their own trauma. They have their own circumstances, right? And so they've probably, if we talk about our parents, they probably did in raising us much better than what their parents did, right?
Right.
And we're trying to do better than our parents, what they did. But we can also come to a place where we say, my parent did the best that he or she could. They really, really did. And I love them and respect them for them. They could even be your hero, but you can also acknowledge, but I received trauma as I grew up.
Yeah.
I was hurt deeply by my parent. They didn't give me what I literally needed. But at that time, and even now, we have a hard time saying what we need, right? We don't always know. And if we know, we just want them to give it. And that's not fair because they might not know what we need and they might not have the capacity to give us what we need.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Because everybody's, like you said, everybody's dealing with their own trauma, in one way or another. And everybody has different capacities, but hey girl, I hope you're enjoying this part 1 out of 2 episodes, and I want to encourage you to come and listen to part 2, in where Irma and I continue talking about finding your freedom. And also I want to mention that I have put Irma's handles in the description. Please go and follow her and follow her journey. And I will see you in part 2. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode inspired you. If you like this podcast, please share on social media and tag me on Instagram @thebraveandher. I would love to hear your stories of bravery.